So the book I'm reading, The Woman with a Worm in Her Head and Other True Stories of Infectious Diseases by Pamela Nagami. I'm reading one of my next chapters called Man-Eater. And it sort of goes into a bacterial infection called streptococcal infections, right? And so she starts off the chapter by saying there was a study done with 20 patients, 13 of them completely healthy, but like all of a sudden, like throughout the study, they all suddenly became ill, with severe pain, usually in an arm or maybe a leg, accompanied by fever, chills, body aches, and sometimes vomiting and diarrhea. And they quickly went into shock after, often with 4 hours of being admitted to a hospital, and they deteriorated fast. Their kidneys failed, they became confused, and their lungs filled up with fluid. And even if they survived, most of them, when they went to the operating room, the doctors opened up like maybe the hurting limbs, such as the arm or leg, like I said. They would be swollen, red, in most cases covered with blisters, and filled with serum and blood. And when surgeons actually got to finding out what was inside the blood, it was group A strep bacterium, which is the same kind of bacterium found that is responsible for getting a sore throat, strep throat, right? And usually during the operation, the surgeon would have to remove the arm or leg or even sometimes abdominal wall just to separate the body from the infected tissue. Because once the tissue is inside the body, it just starts spreading and spreading and spreading. And then eventually, that's why the kidneys start failing, the lungs fill with liquid, etc. Because what killed them was their tissue. And them was necrotizing fasciitis, or also known as flesh-eating strep. Literally eating the strep out of them. Because when the person was getting infected, you can see like their arm or like leg or whichever was like infected first. You could see like the color going away, and then you could see it like sort of rotting as like it's getting eaten by the strep. And then going in like history, group A strep or Streptococcus pyogenes is one of humankind's ancient enemies. When people used to talk about blood poisoning from a wound, the usual culprit was group A strep. And like usually during like the Civil War and anything, if there's like a cut or anyone got cut with the kind of medicine and technology back then, usually strep would get into the body and they would infect the person and they would die. Like even at the hospital, after a war, if someone is like injured and the doctor like patches them up, usually the after effect, which they kind of called that was happening after hospitalism, they would die after. Like they would die either on the table while getting operated on, or they would die after from the infected wounds. And that was usually, again, the culprit was usually group A strep. And, but in the late 1930s, sulfur drugs were introduced, which then led to more medicines being produced. Then the death rate of strep infections just plummeted. The terror of our grandparents, septic scarlet fever, childbed fever, and streptococcal gangrene all became very rare. And rheumatic fever, a form of heart disease which follows strep throat, almost disappeared in the developing world. But then in the mid-1980s, a more fatal strep cases came out where most people were dying, and by the time what really got out was when the Muppet creator Jim Henson died of this group A strep pneumonia, a disease that was rarely seen in adults. Henson, 53, had been fighting this cold, quote unquote, throughout the weekend. He was telling his daughter, "Oh, I'm just tired. I'm just tired, right?" But then by Monday, he was coughing up blood. So that same night, he went to a hospital. He went to a hospital, and despite being treated by multiple antibiotics, his lungs, kidneys, heart, and blood clotting systems all failed. In less than 24 hours, he was dead. Now, back to the first 20 people I was talking about. They all died. Most of them died. And this is all despite, like, all of our advanced medicine today. So it's not like Ebola where a bunch of people are dying in Africa because they don't have good healthcare. No, this is like in the U.S. where people we really do have like really nice healthcare, and even famous people like dying with probably even more exceptional healthcare are dying from this. So it's just not. It's not because we don't have resources about it. We do have the resources, but we're just not. It's not enough. Essentially. But then they sort of discovered how does a person get this. Now this happens, it all starts with trivial injuries, things that can happen like every day. Maybe you getting scratched by like a dog or a cat, or getting a paper cut, or maybe falling down, you scrape your knee or something. Whatever, the tiniest like openings, it's all that the bacteria needs to get into your skin. So once it gets in your skin, it infects usually the arm or leg. It'll start infecting that area. And once you get to the hospital, whatever that area is, that needs to be amputated, or at least back then, at the time, it needs to be amputated to get rid of it. So, they also started like thinking about what other different cases. Mosquitoes were brought in once, but the thing is, these mosquitoes weren't even carrying the strep throat infection, because all that happened is that the mosquito just like poked a hole into the skin and drained out whatever blood or gave out anything it did, but that hole was the only thing that was that made the bacteria get in. And that's like basically the end of my video, but yeah.
Okay. So I might ask some questions. So you say, how do you call that? It's bacteria, the strep.
Group A strep.
Okay. Group A strep. So
bacteria.
It's not every strep. Like for example, if someone has a strep throat. So it could be also the group A strep.
So usually what happens is a child would have like the strep throat, and they don't even need to be showing signs of it. Like usually 50% of the children have strep throat, but they don't show symptoms for it. It's what they do. So maybe they'll cough or sneeze out these tiny particles in the air, and an adult or someone else can either inhale it, or it can get into the cuts or anywhere for the person to either have strep throat too, or for them to get the flesh-eating effect, right? And so eventually what happens is that these two people, like, they can infect each other, or they can start infecting other people.
So the one with a open wound will get in trouble. Is that what you're saying?
Basically.
So why then, when you have the strep throat here in your throat, it doesn't kill you, but it kills you when it goes through the open wound?
Because well, I would guess because most likely maybe there's more I'm not necessarily sure. Maybe because
That's okay. You feel that there
yeah.
is more the immune system is probably stronger, or
But that wouldn't make sense because the most immune system through the mouth is usually the saliva, and through your nose is the mucus, and that's usually what takes them out. Oh wait, I remember now. These new viruses, they have a lot of an M protein, which makes it really hard for um, white blood cells to uh, absorb them. Like, you know how if there's like an invader, they'll have like the white blood cells, they'll eat the thing and then it's gone, right?
okay.
Well, with these M protein, the white blood cell can't eat them.
This is when you got open one, but in your throat, then it's all right. Yeah. But you say virus is nothing to do with virus. It's a bacteria. Is that right?
Yeah.
So it's not no virus. Yeah. So the other thing I wanted to ask is that, so you talk about Jim Hansen, the famous. Actually, this is the guy who invented Elmo.
Yeah, the
Voice
Muppets.
from Elmo. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this guy died from it. So it's probably. Do you know if he got hurt, or do you know that? You didn't say that, but maybe somewhere they suggest that he might have get hurt or something.
Right. Well, basically what they were saying was that yeah, they didn't specify it. All they said was that he started developing the symptoms and then eventually he died.
Okay, so
But yeah.
I wanted to ask you last one. Okay, so yes. So is there? I think I recall. Is there an example with a firefighter that got?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, there was an example. There was this kid who I think had like some heart problem. I think.
He was on the top. It was maybe on top, yeah.
No, it's not there. But basically, I think this kid had like a heart problem. And basically, they had to call the firefighter in, and then the firefighter took a handheld mask, like breathing mask, and put it on the kid. So the kid was breathing right. And then, despite all their efforts, by the time they were rushing into the emergency room, he died, the kid. And then I think like a week later, the firefighter on the same hand he used, for some reason, maybe he had a cut or anything, but
He had a cut, yeah.
he had a cut, and well, it got infected, and his hand was like really red and stuff. But eventually, he was like one of the survivors that didn't have to get like his hand amputated or anything, but just he eventually survived. So yeah.
Okay. So, but he was affected just because he got.
Just because he like held the hand, yeah, and it's even with the oxygen, like the.
So what do you think about this story?
Well, I thought it was very interesting. I do have some questions, maybe because I'm not done reading the chapter. But like for example, why is it not told here? Like I remember they were introducing it. They were like saying, this sounds like something that should be like in the world news magazines or something, or like with the Elvis sightings and the aliens and stuff like that. But then they were trying to say, but unlike like the Elvis sightings, it's really true, right?
Okay.
So yeah, I don't know. I'm just kind of wondering, like, why is that not necessarily a problem today? Or maybe it is a problem, just maybe not as known as Ebola or something.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.